This is a Commitment 2020 special, Candidate Cafe.
At the airport diner, it's a chance to get to know the candidates when their guard is down and their personality is on display.
Who do you think does a better impersonation of you, Larry David or Stephen Colbert?
During WMUR's Candidate Cafe, the test for voters is how well you know New Hampshire.
Because I can say Winnipesaukee. I can say Berlin.
And how well those voters can get to know you.
So don't tell anybody that I have ordered bacon alongside my eggs.
It's the personal side like you've never seen before.
One of our first dates was actually out at my favorite surf spot.
Welcome back to our Candidate Cafe special. I'm Adam Sexton. A warm drink and a good meal make it a little easier to let down your guard, even for experienced politicians. We continue our look at the personal side of the candidates running for president who sat down with undecided voters at the airport diner. Those guests got Democrat Amy Klobuchar to open up about an embarrassing mix-up during her first day in the U.S. Senate and the people who taught her to speak up for herself from a very young age. Back in elementary school, the young Amy Klobuchar had a teacher who opened up a world of possibility.
I had this teacher, Miss Kellyanen, in fourth grade, who was so great about trying to make you be something bigger than yourself, basically. And we would give speeches and presentations. And she would sit at the other end of the class, I still remember, and yell, "I can't hear you." Like a lot of girls back then, it wasn't, didn't think you were going to be president, actually. I still remember in high school, the goal was to have long hair or a haircut like Dorothy Hamill's, to get really tan in the summer by going on your roof in a box with foil, which of course is really bad for you, so no one should do this. Yeah, and marrying your high school prom date, which I didn't do. My prom date was gay, actually. Turned out to be gay.
Klobuchar is quick with a joke, but she's known as a get-things-done kind of senator. While she started in politics early in life, she realized the true impact of public policy when she became a mom.
What really made me see the value of public service and getting things done was when our daughter was born, and she was really sick. And she could not swallow, and it was a complete shock. We didn't know what was going to happen. She was born just a few weeks early, not that early. And so they didn't know if she was going to live. They thought she had a tumor. They thought she had some kind of genetic disease. And so she was in intensive care. And I got kicked out of the hospital. Back then they had those insurance rules in 24 hours. And so they kicked me out of the hospital. And I said to my husband, I bet this wouldn't happen to the wife of the head of the insurance company. And I then joined, she was getting a little better, and I joined forces with some of the people in the legislature, and I testified. And we passed one of the first bills in the country guaranteeing new moms and their babies a 48-hour hospital stay. And I learned two things from that. One is that if you talk about really embarrassing things in front of legislative committees of men, like episiotomies, they're like, okay, I don't want to deal with it. And the second was there was people, while no one could say they were against the bill to guarantee a minimum of 48 hours, they were trying to delay it. And so I brought a bunch of pregnant friends to the conference committee, so they outnumbered the lobbyists. The legislator said, when should this take effect? And it's supposed to be August 1st, and they were trying to get it a year delayed, the lobbyists, and my friends said now, and that's what they did. They made it for when the governor signed the bill.
Klobuchar's daughter is now in her 20s, and she's a regular at her mom's side on the campaign trail, as is the senator's husband, John.
He's 7.5 years younger than me, actually. He doesn't look like it, but he is. When we met, we went on our honeymoon to visit my relatives in Switzerland, and I was 33, and he qualified for a youth year rail pass.
How did you meet?
We met at a a bar. No, it's not. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. No, it was a bar that's no longer in Minneapolis, and it was through friends, and it was just, there was a political conference, actually. Walter Mondale was hosting it, and I was in this thing, and we started talking, and he was really interested in it. And I worked for Mondale at the time, and so then we met, and that was fun, and then we had some mutual friends, so they got us together at a pool hall. And so that's where that was. And then we went on our first date where we were going to double date with this friend of mine, and I was supposed to invite someone for her, and that guy had a girlfriend or something. So the three of us we went to Wayne's World. It was really stupid, which I mean, it was funny.
Speaking of funny, Klobuchar has been able to find quite a bit of humor in her time in Washington.
It's my first day in the Senate. I went and got salad and soup, and I put it down. I'm ready in this beautiful LBJ room, and I'm ready to dive in. And the only one at the table, was all men, was Patty Murray, the senator from Washington State. She jumps up, runs around, grabs my arm, and says, "Amy, you took the entire bowl of Thousand Island dressing, and you're about to eat it." And I thought, from a northern climate, I thought it was wild rice soup, because it was, black. And so then I said, "That's what we do in Minnesota. We eat the Thousand Island dressing." There's a horrendous burdens, and there's burdens on the citizens, and it's your job to make life better for them and to improve people's lives. But if you don't enjoy it, people know you don't enjoy it. If you don't enjoy being with people, then I don't think you should have the job, because a lot of this is bringing people with you, and whether it is with stories or humor or getting to know them personally or empathy for their situation, even if they are on the other side of the aisle, I think that's really important for how you're going to be able to govern.
She's also experienced her share of heartbreak. Her dad was a celebrated sports writer who covered the Minnesota Vikings, but had a drinking problem.
Is there something in your life you can point to, a reason that made you want to run for president?
Yeah, when I look back at my life, I was not anointed to run for office. My life wasn't always completely easy. My dad struggled with alcoholism my whole life growing up, and he had 3 DWIs by the time I got married, and that was when he was given a choice, jail or treatment, and he chose treatment, and it changed his life. But that really affected me. In his words, he was pursued by grace, and it has really shaped a lot of the work that I've done, both as prosecutor and then as in the Senate, of making sure people get treatment and working on things like the opioid epidemic. And he is now 91, and he's in assisted living. He got late onset Alzheimer's, so it really didn't affect most of his life. But even with that, he has this amazing set of jokes and humor that he recalls, even though he may not remember who people are. So about a year ago, he introduced me to a nurse at the place and said, "This is my daughter. She holds an obscure job in the federal government." So he has this bank of things that he still remembers.
Klobuchar is an avid cyclist and also enjoys hiking. She hit the trails here in New Hampshire earlier this year.
And then we went hiking in that Pac Monadnock. Did I say it right? Okay. Okay, and we did that, which was hilarious because I had read in the guidebook, and it's Easter. Easter was a nice day that day, and I said, okay, we're gonna go this harder route, get exercise and everything. And I get there, and there's a ranger there in the afternoon, and they say, well, the road, you can't drive up the road, and I think he meant you can walk up the road, but he says you can't walk up, you can't drive. But I go, oh no, we're not using the road. So we go on this hike, and there's ice and snow still up there, and we're just scrambling to get, it's really, really hard. And so anyway, we get to the top, and there's all these senior citizens who have walked up the road. And they're like, hello, hello.
He joined the race later than his competitors, but former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick is used to doing things his own way. The Democrat says starting his political career as an outsider reinforced the lessons of his early life. Deval Patrick grew up on the south side of Chicago, a gifted kid with a unique first name.
My father was a jazz musician. They split when I was 4. But my father was a jazz musician, very avant-garde musician, very avant-garde life, I would say. My mother and father had a deal that she would get to name the first and he would get to name the second. My mother, so my sister Rhonda was named after an actress, Rhonda Fleming. Oh, yeah. Probably, yeah, okay. And then my father wanted to name, I was the second, so it was my father's turn. And he dreamt up this name, and my mother said, "What are you talking about?" And it's like I'm sure I am paraphrasing the conversation, but I think it was in that nature of what are you talking about? And he said, "Look, this was the deal, so here I am." And I usually get, is it Patrick Duvall or Duvall Patrick?
There were hard lessons learned in those early years.
As I said, I grew up in Chicago, a lot of that time on welfare with my grandparents and my mother and sister after my parents split when I was 4. And I went to, big, broken, overcrowded urban schools, although I had fabulous teachers. I mean, teachers who were amazing in the classroom, but important in my life. My 6th grade teacher, she took us to a new movie that was out at the time called The Sound of Music. And she used it to teach us about the rise of the Nazis and the Second World War. I describe her as the first person who ever, who helped me imagine what it might be like to be a citizen of the world, which is, I think, a gift for any kid, but especially us.
His promise as a student helped him land a spot at the prestigious Milton Academy in Massachusetts.
So I landed there the night before classes began. And they had a dress code in those days. The boys wore jackets and ties to classes. So my grandparents, when the clothing list arrived at home, they splurged on a new jacket for me to wear to class. But a jacket on the south side of Chicago is a windbreaker. So, I come by myself, never seen the campus before, the night before classes, and the next morning all these boys are putting on their blue blazers and their tweed coats, and I have my windbreaker, and I think, oh boy, I got a lot to learn.
He was a quick study, rising from Milton all the way through Harvard Law School and to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
Being a lawyer, you've had a lot of fascinating cases. So which one is your favorite?
Wow. There's more than one.
Well, tell us about it.
So I got to, I mentioned earlier that I was head of the Civil Rights Division. This was in the Clinton administration. I met President Clinton when I sued him when he was governor of Arkansas. And yeah. So he was the voting. The election commission in Arkansas is constitutionally chaired by the governor and the other constitutional officers, and then all the county clerks were also parties to this case. And this is when I was at the Legal Defense Fund in New York, and I was doing voting rights and death penalty defense. And we sued him on a case having to do with access to the ballot, just being able to register. And the county clerks in a lot of southern states are very, very powerful. They have a lot of control over how you register, when you register, how simple or complicated it is. And we sued, and he and I worked out the terms of the settlement together.
Patrick eventually became a governor himself, elected to lead the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 2006.
What were the best and worst things about being governor of Massachusetts?
Well, I'll talk about the best, and then for the worst, we can shut off the cameras. So I hadn't run for anything before. You may know, our dynamic in Massachusetts is less Democrat-Republican than it is insider outsider. It's a very closed, inward-looking political establishment, and I wasn't a part of it. But I think in some ways the thing I'm proudest of is that we remembered we had it within us to do big things and to do them together. Not all of it about legislation, it's just about collaboration. And I feel great about that. I think the worst day was the worst day about was probably the day the bombs went off at the Marathon. But in some ways, that week was incredibly powerful for us because we, that's the kind of occasion where, all the things that could go wrong, all the things that, all the ingredients for things going wrong, fear and uncertainty and anger, all the things where it could go sideways easily didn't, because we asked that we turn to each other rather than on each other, and folks just brought their best. You know, the first responders, the law enforcement, regular citizens, the kindness they showed to runners and visitors, and I think all of that contributed to finding these two terrorist needles in a haystack in 100+ hours.
Patrick has a soft spot for stories of people finding unity through adversity. At the cafe table, he recounted the Holocaust survival story of Steve Ross, a Boston man who in the spring of 1945 was a teenager, starving and near death after being liberated from a concentration camp.
And he said there was a man on a tank, an American GI on a tank, who saw him wandering, who was having his rations. And this young man, who probably was, 19 years old, who jumped down and handed the boy his rations. And he talked about how he fell down on his knees and started kissing the GI's boots because it was the first act of grace he'd been shown in a long time. And he said that the GI picked him up and comforted him and gave him a hug and gave him this tiny American flag, and which, when I met him in his 80s, he was still carrying. And I think I'm special. I'm sensitive to it because I know how many acts of grace made it possible for me to come from the South Side of Chicago to the experiences I think the American dream it's dependent on a lot of things, including grace.
We have many candidates ahead. Plus, first-in-the-nation voters enjoy unusual access to presidential candidates because of events like our candidate cafes. Granite Staters tell us how the up-close approach affects their choices on the ballot.